за мојот народ никогаш да не го спориш во теминутив.
The legacy of a nation is often wowed through its stories, its heroes and its struggles. One such story that resonates deeply with the Macedonian people is that of Goce Delchev, a revolutionary whose impact spans generations. Born 152 years ago, Delchev's life was dedicated to the pursuit of freedom and independence for Macedonia. His revolutionary spirit inspired countless individuals to stand up against oppression and fight for their rights. Today, we embark on a journey to explore the remarkable tale of Delchev's relics, how they were safeguarded through challenging times, nearly lost to history, the challenges faced in their preservation, and the significance of their eventual transfer from Sofia to Skopje. Before we get into the details of how and why Delchev's remains were transferred from Sofia to Skopje, why it took almost 50 years before he had a permanent resting place, and finally, why is this so important and celebrated by Macedonians and Balars Bulgarians to this day, let's see how this year's celebration of 152 years since the birth of the revolutionary went. Considering in what stage were and still are the relations between the two countries, it was not a surprise that the tensions started rising as the day approached, with announcement from Bulgarian side for organized arrival of civilians and an instant reaction from Macedonian side for guarding the entrance of the church Sveti Spas around the clock with the purpose of not letting the Bulgarians inside. The Ministry of Internal Affairs in Macedonia took control of the situation with high measures of security around the church where Delchev is buried by setting up barricades and checkpoints. In the meantime, at the border between the two countries, a group of few hundred Bulgarian citizens were held and practically denied entrance in the country under the pretext that the computer system is down, which obviously was just an excuse to not let them in, at least until the official ceremony is done and the crowd of people who gathered walks away. This was followed by a lot of criticism from Bulgarian side, but without mentioning how the Bulgarian visitors who were allowed entrance behaved at the memorial service for Mara Buneva earlier that same year in Skopje. The assembled crowd constantly shouted insults towards Macedonians while marching through Skopje, ironically protected by the Macedonian police. Let's hear what had to say one of the Macedono-Bulgarian who attended the event about the behavior of the visitors.
Да дојдеш у сред Скопје да говориш Македонија бугарска, тоа не ни начин ни како да се двете држави да се зближуваат. Некој јас сум булгарин и по татко и по мајка и ние само со такви митинзи си правиме проблем на односите меѓу Македонија и Бугарија. Мислам дека некои работи мора да се променат. Ние сме овде, македонците булгари, сами ќе решиме како сакаме да живееме и со кој сакаме да живееме.
In order to understand why it took almost 50 years for the bones of Delchev to be permanently buried and why does this matter even today, we need to go back to the beginning of 20th century in Ottoman Macedonia and follow his steps leading to his death. In an attempt to dissuade Dame Gruev from postponing the announced uprising, in April 1903, Goce traveled to Solun. After he fell in debt, he scheduled a congress of the Ceres district for 6th of May and stopped with his company in the village of Banica, where he met with the detachments of Dimitar Gushtanov and Dimo Hadjidimov, who also happened to be there. On the evening of May 3rd, Goce, very impressed by the Thessaloniki assassins, expressed that the entire rotten Turkish Empire will be shaken from its foundations by the attacks. However, his tragic death interrupted all his far-reaching plans related to the Macedonian future. During the night, the village of Banica was surrounded by the Turkish army, and the next morning the houses were searched and a battle began in which Delchev was among the first ones to die. Dimo Hadjidimov, Delchev's closest comrade and participant in the fight near the village of Banica, left us the following touching testimony. The battle near Banica took away the greatest man of Macedonia. For 15 hours the Turks were not allowed by bullets to get close to the killed. For 15 hours we watched the dead Goce as he was laying on the grave of Macedonia, and for 15 hours our hearts were torn, because the whole nation was deprived. His dead body was recognized by Major Hussein Tefikov, his schoolmate from the military school in Sofia. After the final discovery, Delchev was stabbed in his forehead with a bayonet by one of the soldiers, but Tefikov intervened and did not allow the dead body to be further desecrated by the Turkish soldiers. This will come important later on in the story. Major Tefikov ordered the bodies of Delchev and Dimitar Gushtanov to be buried in Banica, under the elm trees in the middle, next to the village cemetery. 3 years later, in 1906, on St. George's Day, Mikhail Chakov and Atanas Daskalov of Taska, who were next to Goce when he was actually killed, decided to dig up his remains and hide them from the enemies, especially from the Greek troops. But when searching for the bones, they noticed that they were not completely decomposed. They decided to take only the head and hands. According to Chakhov's diary, one of the Chetniks even quietly added that Delchev's heart does not want to leave Macedonia. Chakov took the bones to Nikola Mutavchiev, a priest in the local church. Delchev's bones were kept in spirit for 3 days and then placed in a coffin. With this act, the long journey of the bones of Gotze Delchev began. During the First World War, Mikhail Chakov participated with his company until 1917. He returned home due to illness and immediately sent a messenger through his friends to the priest Nikola to exhume Gotze's corpse. It is recorded in his testimony that after 2 years, in 1908, the priest fulfilled the promise and collected the rest of the bones, which he buried under the altar in the church in Banitsa, where they thought it was the safest place to keep them. They kept the bones there secretly for 10 years. Here is what happened next according to Mikhail Chakov. In November, December, I could already hear the thunder of cannons from the front in Ser. The thought crossed my mind that the Anglo-French armies could advance so far and force ours to retreat from those places, and together with that we would have lost Gotze's bones forever. Then I figured out how to take them. In 1913, I summoned the priest Nikola Mutavchiev and told him to go and collect the bones. Considering the village of Banitsa was burned 3 times, including the local church, I was not sure if we would recover them, but somehow the old man found the box with the bones as he had left it. Nikola collected the bones in a bag and left by train from Ser. On the train, the bag with the bones got stolen from him by some soldiers who thought it contained gold, but when they saw that they were human bones, they threw the bag from the moving train. Somehow he managed to get off of the train and went in the opposite direction of the railway to look for the bones. After a long search, he found the bag thrown in the side of the rails. From Banitsa, the bones reached Chakov only in 1919, after the end of the First World War. Chakov then lived in a small town of Xanthi, which with the repartition of Macedonia was assigned to Greece, and for that reason Chakov moved to Plovdiv, transferring the relic box with him. On August 2nd, 1923, on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Ilinden Uprising, a special highlight of the celebration was the procedure of transferring the bones of Gotze Delchev from Chakov's house to the St. Nedela Church, where the sarcophagus was displayed for 10 days for people to pay their respects. Then, for several months, the bones were placed in the ceiling of the church next to the bones of Georgi Rakovsky and were kept there until they were transferred to the home of the Ilinden organization, an organization of Macedonian revolutionaries, immigrants who were followers of the ideas of free and independent Macedonian state. The governing body of this organization requested for the bones to be transferred to the office of this society in Sofia. Before the casket was taken out of Chakov's home, the following oath was written on it. We swear the next generations for these holy relics to be buried in the capital of independent Macedonia, August 1923, Ilinden. The transfer of the bones from Chakov's house to the church Sveta Nedela in Sofia on August 2nd, 1923 was documented and filmed by the Macedonian revolutionary and publicist Arseny Yovkov in the documentary film Macedonia in Pictures. The film was shot with the funds provided by the Ilinden organization and on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Ilinden Uprising. The documentary was shot in 2 parts, of which only the first one is preserved today. Shortly after its release, it was banned by the Bulgarian authorities, and a year later, in 1924, Arseny was killed by an order of Vancho Mikhailov. The handing over of Delchev's relics from Sofia to Skopje in October of 1946 was approved by then Bulgarian President Georgi Dimitrov, who himself came from Pirin, Macedonia. A Macedonian delegation was sent to Sofia to bring the bones and fulfill the vow. The delegation, led by Kirill Petrushev, the then Minister of Internal Affairs, had the task of bringing the relics of Gotze and some literature from the Institute of National History left there by the people of the Ilinden organization. The delegation was very well received by the people of Ilinden, the Central Committee of Communists and other Macedonian organizations. In Sofia, the idea that Gotze is Macedonian and should be brought to his homeland was very widely accepted. A banquet and the ceremony were prepared, and the whole reception went very well to the satisfaction of the Macedonian delegation. There, the remains of Gotze were officially handed over from the people of the Ilinden organization to the delegation of the Republic of Macedonia, and after that a long column was formed for bringing the bones through Pirin, Macedonia to Skopje. The promise for Gotze was fulfilled from October 7 to 11, 1946, when the delegation from Sofia arrived in the capital of free and independent Macedonia, greeted with the highest state and military honors. On the departure from Sofia, Todor Pavlov gave a long and meaningful speech at the assembly in Sofia's National Theatre, commemorating the transfer of Delchev's remains. Pavlov was one of the most influential people in Bulgaria after World War II, a native of Macedonia for many years the president of the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. In the long speech, Pavlov precisely tells who was Goce Delchev and what he fought for. Here are some of the key elements from his speech. Pavlov portrays Delchev as a relentless fighter against various forms of oppression, including Turkish tyranny and Great Bulgarian domination. Delchev advocated for the liberation of Macedonia through internal efforts, emphasizing the importance of a national armed uprising. Here's how he described Delchev's revolutionary legacy. About Goce, it should be noted, first of all, that he most consistently and persistently fought both against Turkish tyranny and domination, as well as against Bulgarian and all types of degrees of supremacy, and especially against all attempts of Bulgarian monarchism to use the Macedonian national revolutionary movement for its own dynastic and class purposes. About the liberation of Macedonia, he believed, deeply convinced, that its liberation could only come through serious preparation of the raising of a national armed uprising. We must not be unfair to the memory of the great Macedonian son, and therefore here we are obligated to note that Goce in one of his letters wrote, "Is there no one to write at least one book in Macedonia?" This exclamation of Goce shows that if he were alive, he would in no way remain indifferent to the fact that today in Macedonia there are a lot of books written precisely in the Macedonian language. The lyrics of Racine, Nedeljkovski and especially Venko Markovski and a number of other talented Macedonian poets, wonderful dramatic works performed with a great success by the Skopje National Theatre, whose mastery and we here in the capital of our brotherly Bulgaria recently had the opportunity to admire. All this is undeniable proof that Goce's wish is already a historical fact, and even though some circles in Bulgaria are trying to turn the wheel of history backwards, it can neither be denied nor underestimated. Goce became one of the most beautiful legends of the Macedonian people, as Leski and Boltev are for the Bulgarian. The act of transferring the bones from Sofia to the new capital of the Free Macedonian state, I dare say, has great historical and symbolic importance. Even more so because on their way they will also pass across Pir in Macedonia. Macedonia can be, should be, and finally will be united within its natural historical borders. Thus united, powerful, free and progressive in every way, it will truly become a powerful unifying link of all the Balkan nations. It is interesting that Todor Pavlov in his speech also said that since he was a child, the image of Delchev was somehow engraved in his head, but he did not remember exactly where he saw him. This could be explained by the fact that when Pavlov was 5 or 6 years old, Delchev was a teacher at the school in Novo Selo near Štip, which is only 100 meters away from Pavlov's house, so it is possible that he saw him and remembered him. Pavlov ended his long speech by expressing his doubts that Goce's death was not accidental, but the work of a vile supreme treason. Let's hear some testimonies of people who directly participated in the act of bringing the relics from Sofia to Skopje. The interviews were recorded in 1986 on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the transfer of the bones of Delchev to the capital.
Един ден во 46-та година председателот на владата Лазар Колишевски ме извести дека треба да се испрати делегација во Софија за да ги доведе одаде мощите на Гоце Делчев и некоја литература од Институтот за национална историја кој лидненците го има во Софија. Бидејќи јас работев и збирав податоци за Гоце Делчев и имав напишана известна поголемка статија тогаш на времето, ми рече дека ќе можам и да кажам нешто и познавам работите и затоа сум определен од владата и јас додам во таа делегација. Таму не примија многу добро. И лидненците во институтот и со сите што контактиравме, имаш од разни средини, од Централниот комитет, од земјоделците, од младинци, од младинска организација, со сите разговаравме и сите бе некако прифатена идејата дека е Гоце Македонец, дека треба да се оди во татковината, дека овде е некако како во туѓа земја. И така целата церемонија, целиот тој прием во Софија течеше многу добро и за наше големо задоволство. И овие од институтот кога ни предаваа, кога се вршеше тоа примопредаја, со таков патос говора, со такво воодушевение, оти еднаш Гоце ќе се врати во својата татковина, каде што му е местото во Скопје. Тоа беше на колона прилично долга се формира и одевме од село до град, сегде народот не причекуваше, излегуваше, носе венци, носе цвеќина, се загрелувавме, се гушневме, тоа беше една голема радосна процесија која оеше низ цела Пиринска Македонија.
Се сеќавам ми сега многу живо за тие настани кога и јас како член на делегацијата од Народна република Македонија бе во Софија за преземањето на коските на Гоце Делчев. Тоа беа многу свечани моменти. Иницијативата да се дојде до таа идеја и да се на еден многу официјален начин пренесат коските на Гоце Делчев дојде од бугарска страна и од владата на Отечествениот фронт и од мнозина македонски активисти што живееа во Софија и кои беа истакнати раководители во Отечествениот фронт. Се водеа низа договори меѓу владата на Народна република Македонија и Отечествено-фронтовската влада во Софија и како резултат на сето тоа една доста голема делегација на нашата влада замина за Софија. Јас бев нејзин член како народен пратеник од Собранието на Народна република Македонија. Во тие октомвриски денови и во Софија и во сите населени места и градови низ кои поминавме на патот од Софија кон Струмица и Штип, бевме сведоци на еден голем подем и на званичните раководители и на населението за врските кои се создаваат меѓу Нова Југославија и Нова Бугарија, меѓу Бугарија и Народна република Македонија. Особено беа многу силни искажувањата на разните манифестации во Софија, во Македонскиот дом, во Народниот театар. Потоа тргнавме од Софија и преку Горна Ѓумаја, Свети Врач, дојдовме во Петрич, каде на 8 октомври се одржа најголемиот митинг пред доваѓањето на територијата на Народна република Македонија. На тој митинг јас зборував и многу ми се останати во впечаток силните одзиви на населението. Тоа беше многу илјаден митинг, целиот град и сите од околните населени места беа дојдени и таа манифестација ми остана во сеќавање како еден од јарките примери на зближувањето меѓу нашите две земји. Тие моменти ни покажуваат дека со заемно разбирање може да се дојде до многу блиски врски меѓу Југославија и Бугарија во целина, меѓу Македонија и Бугарија.
Тие два дена минати во Софија по повод пренесувањето коските на Гоце Делчев во Македонија, така остануваат во еден спомен, во едно сеќавање кое длабоко ги одразуваше чувствата на македонците во Софија и особено оние низ Пиринска Македонија. Се реализираше еден голем завет, коските на еден од најголемите синови на македонскиот народ, трагично загинат во Баница, да се пренесат во слободната татковина негова, во Македонија. И желбите на сите македонци во Софија кои през целото време на собствената борба живеа со тој идеал да се ослободи татковината, да можат да се вратат во Македонија или да имат комуникации со својата слободна татковина. По тој повод беше организирана голема академија на која говореше Тодор Павлов. Целиот негов реферат беше посветен на ликот на неговите лични сеќавања за Гоце, кој го согледуваше идеалот за ослободување на својата земја само низ борба, собствената борба на македонскиот народ. Се сеќавам на митинзите кои по тој повод беа одржувани низ Пиринска Македонија, почнувајќи од Ѓумаја, сегашен Благоевград, Свети Врач, денешен Сандански, Петрич и уште некои места. Цела Пиринска Македонија живуваше тие денови со пренесувањето на коските на Гоце Делчев во својата татковина. Митинзите организирани по тој повод беа величествени. Целиот народ беше на митинзи. Целиот народ со клекнување му даваше почит на големиот Гоце, во исто време поврзано и се една радост што на крајот се реализираат идеалите на Гоце. Гоце оди спокојно да лежи во ослободената земја, во ослободеното Скопје, пропратено со големи надежи на сите пиринци дека таа символика, патот на Гоце низ Пиринска Македонија за Скопје, ќе ги отвори вратите, ги руши границите и за добри односи помеѓу Југославија и Бугарија и особено со решавањето на македонското прашање, онака како што го беше поставиле Тито и Димитров, се решават и многу покрупни прашања за односите меѓу балканските народи, а посебно за иднината на македонскиот народ пошироко гледана. Тоа чувство кај секој перинец, кај секој човек низ Пиринска Македонија може да се види.
1906 година, 3 години след убийството на Гоце, Чаков отива в Баница. Той не може да търпи, че коските на Гоце са в Баница. Може би турците или други предавници да извадат коските. И с това трябва да ги изваде коските на Гоце. И отива да извиква Клисара. Коля сега за Клисара. Ела каза да вземем коските на Гоце, намереше едно съндъче, да ги турим и в алтара на църквата да ги погрева. Да са скрити. Значи взимат съндъчето, отиват на гроба на Гоце, но там е Димитър Гощанов. Сега, кои са коските на Гоце? Не може да разберат, двама са. И кои коски да вземат, те по белега, значи качели да рочно е направил войника. По белега на челото, дупка на челото има. Кой има дупка? Димитър Гощанов няма. Гоце има. 23-та година решил да отида в София. И отива в Македонски дом. Македонски дом, събрани са там, нали, управата, и там Георги Димитров. И казва, коските на Гоце Делчев са у мен. И тогава Георги Димитров казал, коските на Гоце трябва да бъдат сега в главния град в Македония. Гоце е родено в Кукуш, в Македония, убит в Баница в Македония и коските не може да бъдат в България.
Во тој одбор ја влегував исто како домаќин на градот, председател на градскиот народен одбор, и имав следната задача: да припремам местото каде што ќе треба да се постават коските на Гоце. Се определи црквата Свети Спас во дворишето, но во тоа време целата црква беше забиколена со некои трошни згради, неуредни, немаше никаков изглед за таква една свеченост. Затоа моја задача беше да припремам теренот, т.е. да срушам зградички, стари, дотрајали, исто така и пред влезот да се припреми, да се изравни целиот тој терен. Посадиме дрца, направивме паркче на брзина и плюс требаше јас да премам саркофаг во кој што ќе стојат коските на Гоце Делчев. Се дискушираше околу тоа. Дали споменик во дворишето да се подигне, а да се закопаат коските, или саркофаг, а споменик на друго место. За таа цел јас го ангажирав стариот местор, мајсторот, да изработи мало еден сандук, сосема мал, али во резба, во која што да се смесат коските. Сето тоа во рок за околу 20 и неколку дена се заврши, макар што беше тоа една голема работа.
The sarcophagus in which the bones of Goce Delchev were brought from Sofia to Skopje was crafted by the famous carver Nestor Alexiev Mirchevsky. Tasked by the state's highest authorities in 1946, Nestor embarked on the challenge of creating the sarcophagus within a tight deadline of 21 days, working tirelessly day and night alongside his son Mile. Using walnut wood, Nestor first sketched the details of the sarcophagus, including the figure of Goce Delchev with a laurel red, a symbol of victory, alongside the coats of arms of Macedonia and Yugoslavia. The coffin, resting on 4 lions' paws, featured various motifs, with the central one being Delchev's figure. On the back, a message from the Macedonian Revolutionary Organization was engraved, "Death of Freedom." According to the testimonies, the bones were wrapped in red silk as a symbol of the Ilinden uprising. Despite the political sensitivities, before completing the carving, Nestor faced a dilemma regarding the inclusion of a cross, customary in such cases. Despite the political situation and sensitivities, Nestor, with the support of those around him, decided to carve a cross on the lead's handle, a decision accepted without objection by the authorities. Decades later, Mile, Nestor's son, reflected on the tender touch of the walnut wood, recalling the process of creating the sarcophagus alongside his father. In trembling, "This is the first time I've touched it in 68 years. The wood is still as tender as it was then. I have the same feeling as when I touched it after my father finished it. He worked on it day and night just to make something worthy for Goce. I have no words to describe the beautiful feeling." Remember the 8 years old Mile Alexievsky, who at the time when the sarcophagus was made was only 12 years old, but still very vividly remembered remembers many details, such as the one that when his father worked on it didn't even use a pencil eraser. Instead, when needed to correct something in the drawings, he used bread for wiping. Despite the passage of time, the walnut wood remained in remarkably good condition, requiring minimal protection against insects in the past 8 decades. The sarcophagus is now one of the most important artifacts in the memorial room of Goce Delchev in the complex of Sveti Spas Church. The museum also exhibits pieces of weapons, community clothing and documents. The sarcophagus serves as a symbol of Macedonians' enduring reverence for its hero. Through Nestor's masterful craftsmanship and dedication, Delchev's legacy is immortalized and its enduring testimony to the Macedonian history. Today, the bones of Delchev are kept in the inner courtyard of the church. For a permanent solution is chosen a white marble sarcophagus with stylistic characteristics of modernism and cubism. Above the main pedestal of larger blocks, the sarcophagus is separated by 3 smaller bases, which symbolize the 3 separated parts of Macedonia. Even after 80 years, the author of this work is not known. Macedonian media have reported on this dilemma on several occasions. These articles mention the suspicion between 2 architects from Slovenia who worked in that time in Skopje. Then another tells about the possibility that the author is from Croatia. For possible ways to find out the author, some have suggested the idea of opening the sarcophagus in order to check if the author has left his signature inside. The journey of Goce Delchev's relics mirrors the determination of the Macedonian people, from safeguarding the bones in times of wars to the craftsmanship of the sarcophagus, each step echoing with respect and resilience. In recent years, amidst the historical dispute between Macedonia and Bulgaria, some Bulgarian politicians have sought to reignite all tensions by questioning the rightful ownership of Delchev's remains, even suggesting that they should be returned to Bulgaria. These claims, however, ring hollow in the face of history. For decades, Delchev's bones lay forgotten in the house of Mikhail Chakov in Sofia, with no official recognition to the revolutionary or any attempt for official burial. It seems suspicious that only now there is a sudden display of respect and interest in Delchev's relics. Moreover, the recent claims that the relics may have been thrown along the road from Sofia to Skopje ignore the enormous efforts made by those who safeguarded Delchev's remains throughout the years of conflict and upheaval. Such claims seek to undermine the enduring reverence with which Delchev's legacy is held in Macedonia. In the midst of these tensions, it's important to remember the reverence and gratitude felt towards those who have safeguarded Delchev's remains over the years. This is how the leader of the Macedonian revolutionary movement at the time, Todor Alexandrov, acknowledged his appreciation and gratitude towards Mikhail Chakov for his dedication in preserving the remains of Goce Delchev. August 2nd, 1923, to Mr. Mikhail Chakov. It is my pleasant duty to express many thanks to you on behalf of the fellow fighters for the independence of Macedonia and on my behalf for the patriotic idea to find and collect the holy bones of our predecessor and great teacher Goce Delchev, and for your concern to preserve them as a shrine in your home, for which you have served the gratitude of today's struggle and tomorrow's irrepressible Macedonia. With many greetings, Todor Alexandrov. Despite these attempts to sow discord, the Macedonian people remain steadfast in their respect for Delchev and his enduring legacy. The marble sarcophagus in the Sveti Spas Church stands as a testament to their commitment to honor their hero and preserve his memory for future generations. As we reflect on the journey of Goce Delchev's relics, let us not be fooled by political rhetorics or historical revanchism. Instead, let us honor the resilience of a nation that for centuries fought for freedom and dignity. In the end, Goce Delchev's relics serve as more than just artifacts. They are symbol for resilience, unity and the enduring quest for justice. May their presence continue to inspire all who cherish values for which Delchev fought and died.
Нова Македонија од 7, 8, 9, 10 и 11 октомври 1946 година известува на првите страници за патот на Гоцевите коски низ Пиринска Македонија, за френетичните пречеци, неизмерната радост на луѓето, за огромната почит кон Гоце и делегацијата од Народна република Македонија. Изразите на радост што конечно коските си го наоѓаат вистинското место, што се остварува заветта и ја пратат поворката од автомобили и автобуси низ целиот пат по Народна република Македонија. Првиот национален празник 11 октомври се слави уште посвечено и составањето на коските во Скопје во дворот на црквата Свети Спас. Мраморниот саркофаг, што стои на 3 столпчиња кои ги символизираат трите дела на Македонија, цврсто ги чува коските во мир од какво било уривање. на 12. октомври 1946 година во градскиот парк на пригодна свеченост Лазар Колишевски го открива споменикот на Гоце Делчев, дело на уметникот Љубомир Делчев.